Hey guys, my name is Hannah Jackson. This is my American Gods presentation for Magic, Myth, and Religion. I decided to do my presentation about the ancient Egyptian god of the sky, Horus. So without further ado, let's get started. Horus was originally not a well-known god. He was mainly a local god as part of the cult of the hawk in the delta region of the Nile. He was originally known as Horus the Elder. When the cult started to spread more throughout Egypt, Horus became more well known and changed to Horus the Child. Horus is usually seen as having a human body with the head of a hawk or a falcon with different colored eyes. The left eye is supposed to represent the sun as it's a gold color, and the right eye is supposed to represent the moon as it's a silver tone. The right eye was the one that was lost in battle with Set and is seen in many different tombs and temples in ancient Egypt. The eye was a protective symbol that invoked the power of the kings and the gods, and it also invoked the wrath of Horus to anyone who dared enter the temples or tombs. The eye was also used in many different ceremonies in ancient Egypt as more of like an offering for the dead. Horus was the king of the gods and of Egypt after his father Osiris was killed. He ruled over Egypt and the gods for over 300 years. He was known as the uniter of both the north and the south of Egypt, bringing peace and community to the two different sides. Horus was also extremely important to the pharaohs. It was said that pharaohs were a product of a mortal woman and a god, essentially a demigod. However, they were not in the same realm of gods until they received their crown and went through the crowning ceremony. There is a moment right after the new pharaoh is crowned that the spirit of Horus and of kingship will enter into the pharaoh's body and transform the pharaoh into a god, placing them into the same realm as all the other Egyptian gods. Essentially, the ancient Egyptians believed that Horus and his power was reincarnated into the next pharaoh. Horus is the son of Osiris and Isis, and the nephew of Set. There are a lot of different myths and legends about Horus. However, the most well-known myths are those that involve the rivalry between Horus and Set. The rivalry between Set and Horus was a result of Set killing Osiris and Horus getting revenge and obtaining the throne. There are about 4 or 5 different challenges between Set and Horus. However, I only talk about one of them that is known as the boat race that I feel is most important to the characteristics of Horus. The two gods were supposed to create a boat made out of stone that was able to float on water and make it to the end of the Nile. Horus ended up creating his boat out of cedar wood, but also using a limestone plaster that appeared as stone. When Horus put his boat into the water, it did start to float. Set, seeing that Horus's boat was floating, went to the top of the mountain, broke off a piece of stone, and threw it into the water to make it into a boat. However, it sank. Set was so enraged by this that Set transformed himself into a hippo and attacked Horus's boat, completely destroying it. Horus, in defense and in rage, took out his spear and was about to kill Set when the rest of the gods stopped him. This myth really shows Horus's more cunning and intelligence. There's also a smaller, less well-known legend that Horus was accompanying Ra, the god of the sun, on his journey throughout the underworld that represented the rising and setting of the sun. Horus was usually seen at the head of Ra's boat, attacking the different beings, entities, and spirits that wished to stop the journey in the rising and setting of the sun, and also defending Ra. When looking back at both the book and the mythology, we can see that there's a lot of differences in the representation of Horus. In American Gods, Horus is a little crazy. He's a little bit insane and very hard to completely understand. He speaks in broken phrases that people who don't know him or know who he was would not completely understand. It's like he kind of lost his mind and he never fully recovered it. He's usually portrayed in the book as naked and gets easily distracted by his surroundings, which is completely different from the representation of him in myths and legends. In myths and legends, he's usually seen as like a warrior. He's seen as very cunning and using his intelligence to achieve his goals and defeat his enemies. He is very fearless and willing to face his enemies head on in both combat and trying to outsmart them in any way he can. There is not a whole lot of similarities between the representations except their physical appearance, mainly in their mismatched eyes. In the book, you mainly see him in his falcon form until the last couple pages where you do see him in his human form, while in myths and legends, he's usually seen in his half human, half hawk form. So there's really not a lot of similarities between the book and the myths. There's more differences than similarities. These are the sources that I used for my presentation, and this is the end of my presentation. I really hope you enjoyed it and you learned something new about ancient Egyptian mythology, and I hope you have a great rest of your semester.